And today we're at the Warsaw Security Forum, and I'm joined by Dr. Norbert Röttgen. He's from the Christian Democratic Union, former federal minister for environment, nature, conservation, and nuclear safety in the years 2009 to 2012, and chair of the Bundestag Foreign Affairs Committee 2014 to 2021. Sir, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, looking at this conference here in Warsaw, of course, all eyes are on Ukraine and the situation there, but not only. Also, Europeans are looking more to their own security. We have elections coming up in the United States, which has also everyone on edge. So I'd like to start off with some of these issues first, and in particular, Ukraine. Based on what we're seeing from the latest current developments, President Zelensky in the United States for the United Nations General Assembly and what have you, trying to communicate his victory plan for Ukraine, not taken up so well. Where do you think we stand as far as Ukraine goes? Do you think that the unity here in Europe will hold?
On the one side, Ukraine and the West have been incredibly successful. When the war started, nobody expected Ukraine to be resistant to the Russian forces for more than 2.5 years now. So unexpectedly, Ukraine has done very, very well. And the West has done well because without the support, massive support of the West to Ukraine, this would not have been possible. But on the other side, we are seeing that Ukraine is suffering from a shortage of ammunition and weapons. The West is still denying some strategic capabilities to the Ukrainians, long-range missiles, striking also against military goals and objectives on Russian territory. And then this is one major strategic shortcoming the West is upholding and not reversing. And this has led to a situation where the military upper hand has shifted to the Russians again. They are not making big inroads, but they are permanently, incrementally creeping forward, putting Ukraine under pressure. And this indicates a prolongation of this war. And I would say the time factor is more on Putin's side than on the Ukrainian side. So we have a militarily critical situation, and it's now up to the West, not to the Ukrainians. They are fighting. They are giving everything they have. For the West, it is to decide, are we ready to support better, adequately, the Ukrainians? Not out of solidarity and generosity, mainly and only to the Ukrainians, but because of our own interests. We have to pursue and achieve one goal. And the goal is to make war a failure, to make this war a failure. If we do not succeed in that, if war is only partially successful, then war will remain in Europe, and it will come closer to us Western Europeans. So this is our interest. We are not doing enough. We are not doing what is possible to us, and this is also a violation of our own security interests, and we should step up out of our own interests.
Speaking about not doing enough of what we could do, we've seen repeatedly red lines set by Vladimir Putin. Those red lines have been continuously crossed by the Ukrainians and even the West. When we talk about long-range weapons and the ability for Ukraine to use them to strike targets where these attacks on Ukraine are being launched from in Russia, why is it that you think in Germany and other countries such as France, the UK, and the United States, we're so reluctant to allow Ukraine to use these weapons to effectively defend itself?
There have been differences within the West. For example, Finland gave the weapons to Ukraine without any restriction. So the Finns know the Russians very well. But others, they are always talking about the fear of escalation. And to my view, this is a reversal of perpetrator-victim. what is happening here. Vladimir Putin and the Russians have fully escalated. And our restriction should be the international law and to deliver weapons in order to bolster the self-defense, to enable the Ukrainian self-defense, of course, is under international law absolutely legal, and this is beyond doubt. And I think there is a lack of strategic clarity and a lack of the pursuit of our own interests, which is to stop this war by not engaging in the war directly, but by supporting Ukraine with weapons, ammunition, and military stuff. I depict in this reluctance and unwillingness, partly, a lack of political leadership. This lack will cost us dearly. It will make everything more expensive if we are not adequately supportive now when it is possible.
Where do you think the void is in the lack of political leadership? Does it?
I would say certainly the German government and the German chancellor. The German government even is divided on, for example, the issue of the delivery of the German cruise missile called Taurus. Two coalition parties are supportive of it. The CDU opposition is very much supportive of the delivery of Taurus missiles, but the Chancellor and the SPD are not. Unfortunately, it's embarrassing to say as a German, the main European void is the German Chancellor, who has always publicly talked about that supporting Ukraine could mean escalation. And it's just the other way around. Putin is escalating, and to stop the war is only possible by equipping Ukraine so that Ukraine is able to fend off the war activity and to make this war a failure. So it's really the German Chancellor. Unfortunately, I have to say, also the American administration, irrespective of the huge amount of money they have delivered, they are holding back the allowance to use strategic capabilities, American weapons, to strike against military goals, objectives on Russian territory, which is not required by international law, and to not allow the Ukrainians to destroy weapons and ammunition before this ammunition kills civilians in Ukraine is not understandable.
Could this be just a factor of the elections being just around the corner?
Yes, I think so. I think so that Biden is determined to not allow this war and the American support to Ukraine become a campaign issue, because Trump is already campaigning against the American policy to militarily support Ukraine, and he does not want this to be a bigger issue in the campaign. Yes, that is also my analysis. However, it's a wrong policy, and the Ukrainians are paying for the domestic restraint a high price.
Dr. Röttgen, you have some experience dealing with the Trump administration, especially when they were so wanting Germany to spend much more on defense. If former President Trump is reelected this time around, he has a plan to end this war in 24 hours, as he says. Based on your experience with the Trump administration, do you think that this is possible? And where do you think Atlantic ties between the United States and Germany and Europe, for that matter, would head in such a...
Given the unpredictability of Donald Trump, it's hard to predict what he would actually do if he gets re-elected. However, I think we can assume that Trump too, if it happened, will not very much resemble Trump 1. I would say both his personal level of aggression, his resentments, and the level of preparation are very much different to the Trump 1 presidency. So in a way, we have perhaps to expect more compared to Trump 1. I personally expect, if he were elected, a break with American foreign policy tradition since the time the Americans entered World War II. With that decision, and since then, they have identified European security as an original, genuine American interest. And Trump does not see European security as an American interest. The consequence would be that we would not see any military, financial support, American support to Ukraine. He would offer the Europeans to buy American weapons to deliver them to Ukraine, so that he would make a business case. The worst case scenario would be that he makes a deal with Putin. This could only be achieved at the expense of the Ukrainians and Ukrainian security, and by this European security. And if that were the case, then also NATO, as the Western institution, which was born and has worked only for one purpose, to guarantee European security. This institution would not be the same as it has been over decades during the time in the aftermath of the World War II.
Would Europe be able to step up and fill this void?
We Europeans would have to do that. We should have started long before doing that. Poland has done this in a remarkable way, in an impressive way. But then, if Trump gets elected and he would present this war as a European war, a European affair, so care for your own interest, he would be right to a certain extent. He would be wrong in assuming that this is not an American interest, but he would be right to say this is a genuine European interest, so care for your own interest. And it would not be wrong only because of Trump says it. And we would have to do that. We should have prepared. Then we will have to catch up, because there is only this one Europe we have. We don't have another substitute Europe. It's our Europe, and then we will have to defend our Europe and restore security and peace. Yes, it is a European responsibility. It's our interest.
Dr. Norbert Röttgen, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you.
And that's all from us here at the Warsaw Security Forum. Thanks for joining us, and stay with us for more.